NJ.com and the Star Ledger welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start chopping.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. 49-10 victory over Akron. Some trouble with the MAC nationally. No trouble here with the MAC. Notre Dame going down to Northern Illinois. Bowling Green giving Penn State everything they got. But no, Rutgers handling the Zips, named after a style of galoshes from the 1930s, as we learned on this podcast. 1930s. I don't know. That part might not be right. How you guys doing?
Doing well. We cover a team that is smart enough to sign the bad teams in the MAC to come play for them. Don't pick one of the good teams. Pick one of the bad teams. Rutgers was smart enough to give Akron $1 million to come to Rutgers and get their butts kicked.
Hey, whatever works, right? I mean, all right. So the competition has been great, but as you pointed out, the offense looks great. Not great. Good. Very good. As good as we've seen an offense in 10 years. And this is funny. I go to the Giants game on Sunday. And yeah, you were there, Pat, right? You were actually in the stands. So
I was getting sunburned and beaten down miserably.
Yeah. So I see friend of the podcast and our ombudsman who corrects our grammar and factual errors. Fooch is in the press box at MetLife Stadium. Go up to him. At least we cover one good offense. I said, there's one good cover one good quarterback that I know of. Could be two, depending how Aaron Rodgers makes it past his fourth play tonight against San Francisco. But one good quarterback, one good offense. Brian, you broke down the numbers. It's pretty impressive to see that Athan Kaliakmanis so far, what he's done. I mean, I went through and watched all his throws. They even did a nice little video that had all the throws in there. There's some good ones. I mean, there's some throws we haven't seen. Forget the numbers. There's just some passes we haven't seen from this guy, from a quarterback in a long time.
Yeah. And again, the caveat that you mentioned earlier that needs to keep being said, they played an FCS team and a bad FBS team. So you have to keep that in mind. But Kaliakmanis, Monangai, and the offense have looked really, really good to start the season. And I guess if you're going to play teams at this caliber, you got to beat them down. And that's what they've done. Athan, you mentioned this to me in the press box, and I put in the film review. 2 straight games at the end of the first half. They have a 2-minute drive, and he moves the ball down the field really, really well. I think that's encouraging. I think he had some spotty throws in the beginning, the interception, obviously. He missed a couple throws in the first half that kind of make you scratch your head. But he comes back in the second half, completes 9 of his last 11 passes, throws 3 touchdowns, completes the simple passes, finds guys down the middle, has Chris Long, obviously, for the long ball. These are plays that were not happening last year or even the last 5 years. And again, this is a very low bar to clear, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, listen, he is, I would say, at worst at the level of Noah Vedral. And I think that you could say he's about the best quarterback they've had since Chris Laviano, maybe Gary Nova. Laviano's numbers were actually kind of sneaky good. I know he had Leonte Carew. They were actually kind of good, so I don't want to say he's better than Laviano already, but he's certainly on pace to be the best quarterback they've had in a decade if he can keep doing that as the competition gets better, starting with Virginia Tech in a couple weeks.
Pat, there's 2 throws that stick out to me. Obviously, the long one to Long, just a great throw. But the one before that, I think on the possession before that, he just zips one across the middle and hits Damian Murrell in stride.
Yeah,
and this is stuff we haven't seen. Just like getting players and playmakers in space, and when they're running, getting the ball in their hands. I don't know. Good sign.
It's absolutely a good sign. And you pointed out like the accuracy is so much improved. Hitting receivers in stride makes such a difference. Being able to catch the ball and run makes such a difference. And when you can open the field up, you can give the ball to your star running back to not face 8-9 guys in the box. That makes a huge difference. So the offense is just so much more versatile when you have multiple options. So right now, I think the biggest takeaway is that it's a multifaceted offense for the first time in a decade, right? It's not just we're going to hand the ball to Monangai. It's, we can hit 15-yard passes. We can throw the ball downfield and also run the ball down your throat. So that is a totality. There's totality of the offense, and that's so huge for Rutgers.
Right. And it's funny, like you mentioned, Monangai. I put it in the notes. We're not talking enough about Monangai. And of course, we led the show off with the quarterback anyway. Let's talk about Kyle Monangai. And you kind of not really tongue in cheek, but hey, why not Heisman Trophy campaign that I launched in a column for Rutgers on Saturday. But just overall, I think we've kind of just accepted the fact that he's going to get 150 yards a game, which is, I mean, hard to do. It's kind of crazy. He's just really, really good. And some of these runs, and I just love the one run that he talked about a lot. You know, he third quarter, he cuts outside, then cuts back inside, hits a linebacker, takes a linebacker 4 yards, gets gang tackled to 9 yards. The play's whistled dead, and he gets into the end zone anyway. The crowd starts booing. It's a great little college football moment. He's like, what? That play wasn't dead. And we ask about him afterwards, and he's, you know, like, if you haven't been around Kyle, I haven't seen interviews, he's just kind of like a, you know, cool, understated guy. And his quote was something like, got to work on the quick whistle. So it's just like the perfect answer. But that's him to me. That play right there just sums him up.
Yeah, doesn't stop. The one thing I want to say about Kyle Monangai, he's not just playing to the level he was last year. He's playing better. And what I mean by that is not only is he getting those tough runs you talked about, he's breaking tackles and forcing his way through. He's having these breakaway yards where he had that 61-yarder that you mentioned. He had 2 runs against Howard and 2 runs against Akron of 30-plus yards. That's 4 runs of 30-plus yards in 2 games. That's more than he had the entirety of last season.
Wow.
So he's creating some breakaway runs. He's getting to speed. He did get ribbed a little bit for not getting a touchdown on the 61-yarder. Couldn't quite beat the last guy. That's another thing he said he had to work on. But just the ability to get into space and run is something that he just really didn't do last year outside of a couple of spots. That's really key. And some of that comes to the offensive line. I put a screen grab in the film review that during that 61-yard run, the entire line moves Akron's front to the left, and just the C part's open for Kyle Monangai, and he gets into the space and runs into it. So I think the run game, again, accounting for the competition, has been even better than it was last year, which is really an encouraging sign when he had the best year for Rutgers running back in a decade last year.
I find it very interesting that you think that Kyle Monangai's personality is understated in his interviews and things like that. I think he's so well-spoken and like crafty, and I love listening to Kyle.
Oh, I do too. I just think he's kind of funny and just, you know, like a whatever dude kind of, you know. He pokes jokes at us a couple of times. He's done it. You know, he's just kind of like, he's just like a normal dude. Like he's not going in there with, you know, like he wears a chain around his neck, but it's a photo of his grandmother. Yeah, like I'm just trying. Like if you're trying to describe like what this dude, his first quote is like, "There's 5 reasons why we had this performance today," and he ticks off the names of the offensive linemen one by one.
Yeah, sure. That goes all the way back. That goes all the way back to Don Bosco. I remember that's like a straight up Kyle Monangai, Don Bosco thing. Like,
is that right?
That's been forever. Always giving credit to the offensive line for sure. One other thing about Kyle. I asked him before this game, like we did a Q&A, and I asked him, like, what do you think your best strength is? And conversely, something you'd like to work on. His best strength, he said, was his vision. And I think that's a great answer because, like you said, he has that ability to see the hole, hit the hole, and also make adjustments in the backfield when he doesn't have that hole. So I think that was a great answer by him. And I think that the thing he said he wanted to work on was just his technique, because that's something you can always improve.
Right.
So,
right.
Two little nuggets,
and both things I like. This is what I like to see him work on. I like to see, and this is not really him, but I've been waiting 2 games for them to pop a little screen pass, wheel, something, like get the ball in his hands on a pass play. I don't know. I mean, that would be. It seems like it would be the perfect kind of way to use him. Maybe this is one of these things, one of the wrinkles they're saving for the meat of the schedule here. I don't know.
He had 27 carries. I mean, the guy can only have so many touches in a game, right? I
know Ray Rice would have like 45. This is nothing. That's a light workload for Greg Schiano.
Maybe you're right. Maybe they're saving all those touches for later in the season. But he had 1 catch for 3 yards. I mean, they're at least experimenting more with this year than they did last year.
Isn't it amazing in 2024 when everything about college football, professional football is let's devalue the running back? Rutgers is maybe the only school in the country like feeding the ball 27 times to a running back. It's an anomaly. It's an anomaly.
And this is like, and we talked about it, and this is getting a little lost in the weeds, but like when you knew Greg Schiano had lost, like when he had lost Gleason as his offensive coordinator, where those times when they just wanted to hand the ball to Sam Brown in that Indiana game and have him run for 4 yards, and they were doing all this stuff where the ends are going around, like you could just tell that was it. And like they are back to a Greg Schiano personality offensively. I think. If you could see some more verticality, I mean, this like someone put in the comments about KJ Duff being the next Kenny Britt. I don't know about that, but if you could start seeing that part of the passing game, that would also be the next step for this offense to take. But that said, they are playing the way Greg Schiano wants this offense to play.
Yeah, ball control, not turning it over. That one interception was kind of not even mostly Athan's fault. He had a lot of pressure in his face, which was one of the few times he faced pressure all game. But they're not putting the ball in danger much. I mean, again, Athan could have gotten picked another time or two with the ball, but for the most part was pretty careful with it. Kyle Monangai, I'd have to get the stats, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't. I can't remember the last time he fumbled the ball. They just control the ball, control the clock, and try to force the opponent to make a mistake. It's classic Greg Schiano ball. And the only thing missing so far through 2 games is a punt block, which they've come very close on a couple times.
Right. They feel like they should have got one. Certainly got one against Howard. Yeah, but you're right. They've come close. All right. Let's talk big picture. 2-0 bye week. A lot of talk about the early bye week. I think it's going to work pretty well in this team's favor. It's almost like they had 2 glorified scrimmages, and now they get a week to prepare for the big games. All right. And this is the way I'm looking at the schedule now. Tell me if you agree. The next 4 games, each game gets a little harder and a little more important. All right, maybe not, by what the line's going to look like, but if you look at this, at Virginia Tech, then home to Washington, then at Nebraska, then Wisconsin. And I put on my notes here. You go 4-0 on that stretch, you are poised for the greatest season in school history. You go 0-4, and we're done here. Like we're done. The pop the balloon, deflated the whole. You're wondering how we're back in the Detroit Bowl if we're lucky, right? This is my question to you now. Would you sign for 2-2?
Wow.
Which is a great question, right? Because at any time, any other time in school history, if I told you would beat 2 of those 4 teams in a season, you'd be like, of course. Would you sign for 2-2?
Well, we obviously, Brian and I, being around the team every day, we keep our feet grounded, and we only take one game at a time. So
fire you from this podcast.
I'm off the pod. We're just going to chop the moment.
Oh, Jesus.
No, in all seriousness, I don't think you can sign for 2-2 because you're coming into this. And again, in this one game scenario, you start with Virginia Tech, you get a win there. That Washington game is going to be unbelievably packed and raucous and just such an awesome game for Rutgers that I think you're going to start to build momentum. And I think you can get 2 to start. Then you're playing with house money.
That's a great point. Brian, what do you think?
It's a very fair point from Pat. Great way to look at it. I certainly think there is a scenario where they can win 3. I don't think they could win 4. I really don't. I think that's asking a lot of this team to do that in back 4 straight weeks.
Yep.
I think 3 is possible. But then you're kind of taking a gamble here, and you're putting a lot of weight on this Virginia Tech game. Because I don't think you win 3 if you don't win against Virginia Tech, obviously. So I think you take the conservative route, you sign up for 2-2, you get the Virginia Tech win, and you get one of the other 3 games, and you feel pretty good about being 4-2 entering the second bye week, no? Or do they have I think they have UCLA and USC and then the bye week. But you feel pretty good entering 4-2, going to homecoming against UCLA, which you probably are going to get a win to and get 5-2. So I would sign up for 2-2 just because I think the extra win might not be worth the risk of going 1-3.
Yeah, I think, and again, it's just such a weird conversation to have. If you win at Nebraska, beat Wisconsin. I mean, these are games. Beat the national runner-up. I mean, these are games that would define this program any other year. And the fact that we're kind of talking about it as a potential, to get through that. I think if you get through at 3-1, you're one of the programs that people are talking about nationally. I certainly would sign for that in blood. 2-2. All right, you're still on your way to a very good season. Maybe not a great season, but a very good season. Virginia Tech. Did anybody get a chance to watch them? Nope.
Nah. By the time I got home, it was Too late.
It was
Didn't
also
look
on
impressive,
the CW.
right?
It was on the CW, so it's kind of hard to watch that. The only thing I saw was a clip of the Marshall wide receiver making one of the most ridiculous catches you will ever see, one-handed, like shoving off his defender at the same time. But no, I did not watch the game.
Doesn't look like people were blown away down there by the win. I don't know. I mean,
if Rutgers plays the game that they played against Akron, it should be a pretty commanding win for Rutgers. That's all I'll say. Like,
wow.
If that offense shows up again, that's that well-roundedness. I find it hard for Virginia Tech to really hang in there.
Yeah, I am curious to see how that offense does against a real defense, Brian.
Yeah.
I am curious about that.
Yeah, and I think how are they going to have to take more risks? Because you're not going to be able. I mean, maybe they can, but I just don't expect them to be able to just run the ball at will against Virginia Tech the way they have against Howard and Akron. You're probably going to have to throw, deeper, throw the ball more, take a little bit more risks. I'm very curious to see how they measure up against a better team. Although, obviously, after the first 2 weeks, the shine of Virginia Tech has kind of worn off. Everyone thought they'd be a top 25 team in the preseason, and now I'm kind of looking at them as like an ACC team that Rutgers played in the non-conference the last few years, the Boston College and Syracuse road trips. Rutgers came out victorious. I think it's closer to that now than I thought it was in the preseason, where I thought Virginia Tech was really going to be one of their 2 or 3 hardest games.
It feels like a game you should win.
Yes. I think it's shifted from a game where you give them a 50-50 shot to, I think you'd be disappointed if they didn't win the game, or at the very least lost in like stunning last second fashion or something. It feels like Rutgers. I know I'm the Virginia Tech 10.5 guy. I will never know if that will be, but I feel pretty confident now that Rutgers will be a pick'em, maybe a favorite even going to Blacksburg.
I'll propose this question to you. And I know Akron was coming off Ohio State, right? They were wore down physically. It was tough, but Rutgers, if you measure how Rutgers played out of the gate against Akron versus how Ohio State played out of the gate against Akron, Rutgers was just as good, if not better. I know it's hard to kind of make a comparison like that, but still, I think like the strides that the offense made were so significant, and that can't be missed.
I agree. I think, again, the Rutgers will be fresher off the bye week against Virginia Tech, so hopefully they get another hot start against them. Virginia Tech will be banged up after 3 straight weeks. That could certainly play a factor. But again, it's all going to come down to, can they make similar level plays against much better opposition? I think Virginia Tech to Akron is a much bigger jump than Akron was to Howard.
Right. Absolutely. A lot of reason for optimism, I guess, if you're going to put it that way. That's kind of how I feel coming out of the first 2 games, looking at not just looking at the Rutgers performances, but looking at the schedule, looking at the other teams. Yeah. Okay. I'm betting high as opposed to feeling good about the 9-3.
I would say a couple of teams or 3 teams surprised me this weekend that I know Virginia Tech looks easier than it did in the preseason. Nebraska looked great against admittedly a bad Colorado team, but that stadium looked rocking. That's going to be maybe the toughest road atmosphere Rutgers will play in. Michigan State steals a win at Maryland, who we thought had a pretty good start to the year. They looked good. Last second field goal. In Childs, the quarterback, is pretty good, and Jonathan Smith is a great coach who looks like he's having the team playing better than we expected. And Illinois beats a ranked Kansas team at home in one of the more hyped games they've had in a long time. They looked pretty good. I thought that game in Piscataway was going to be one of Rutgers' easier games, and it still could be, but I was pretty impressed with Illinois as well. So while Virginia Tech looks easier, a couple of them look a little harder, I'd say.
Good point. All right. Let's before we get to questions, let's dive into the AD search really quickly. A lot of people are asking about what's going on with the AD search. Not sure there is an AD search yet, but it's worth talking about for a couple minutes. I think the one development, if I don't know if you people who are on Twitter saw it, but Rutgers fans who are not on Twitter, report from David Wildstein, who you either know as a very connected political reporter or the Bridgegate guy. Either way, reporting that Jonathan Holloway is going to be done in July of 2025. I think, Pat, you had heard that a couple weeks ago that was heading in that direction from one of your sources. I've since heard it from one of my sources that is accurate. That's a big development for this AD search, because now you're in a position that if you're a good candidate for this job, you want to know your bosses.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that means. If that, I can't imagine you're going to wait until you hire the new president before you start looking for an AD. It's just a weird situation.
It's interesting to hear the validity of this report first and foremost. Like, no one's really had Holloway on the record yet. It's so
Brian tried.
Yes, I did approach Jonathan Holloway after the game on Saturday. He politely declined comment, so I wasn't able to ask him.
But yeah, it is interesting to hear it now from a couple of different sources. It is what it is. But yeah, I think you can't wait until 2025. Of course not. That makes no sense. But yeah, and I just keep going back to the question that I asked Shiano in the day after Hobbs resigned about this university being vertically aligned and everything was perfect. And now it seems like the totem pole is just getting chopped. Right.
Ooh,
so
look at that. Chop the administration.
totem.
Chop the totem. Wow. Chop totem. It's a hashtag. It is interesting, but that to that point, it's still, that part hasn't changed, at least from the person that Greg Schiano praises all the time. Amy Towers is going to be the chair of the Board of Governors throughout this period. You have to think that she will be an enormous part of the search. She's Knights of the Knight Brigade tailgate. He's a huge advocate for college sports and for the Rutgers athletic department. I think that is one thing it's going in their favor. But yeah, I'm just waiting for white smoke. Like, will they have a search committee? Will they do it immediately, or is it going to be the Ryan Passari era is going to be far longer than we thought? It's just really interesting. And I know Greg Schiano, who's someone who's going to have a big say in this, is not interested in really breaking this down at this point because he's coaching football team.
This is not ideal timing for any of this. I don't know if there's ever ideal timing for an athletic director and president to leave within a couple months of each other, but this is maybe the worst possible timing in the midst of all the season happening. So,
right. Anything before we move on to football? Anything that we need? Any updates that we want to give our listeners to gymnastics or to?
Well, since we last spoke, we had a report out Thursday morning, getting the reaction from the gymnasts to Rutgers opening the external investigation. They were happy that their allegations are being looked at by an external body. They are disappointed that Umi Salim Beasley, as of that reporting and as of today, from what I understand, remained the head coach of the Rutgers gymnastics program. They were hoping that she would be suspended at the very least, pending the results of the investigation. And that's kind of where things sit now. I think they were in the early stages of the investigation late last week. So I imagine in the beginning of this week, the wheels will start turning. But it does sound like they want to get this done. The quote in the press release was as expeditiously as possible. I think their goal, based on their paying structure as well, is within 2 months. But you never really know with these things. They kind of take a life of their own. Much like football games, they all kind of just take the life of their own.
Right. All right. Let's move on to an even more important topic, which is of course the horn at SHI Stadium. Good transition there, right? And our first question, we have a lot of questions. Thank you for subscribing to the service. As always, the Insider Program. If you need a link I just got a link. I dug up a guy. Someone was asking me on the Twitter, hey, what's going on with the AD? I'm like, why don't you subscribe to our tech service? And I gave him the link. And he, of course, did not subscribe. Anyway, okay. The horn. Train horn, definitely subdued. You guys have done God's work, said Tony and Lawrence. Yes! We built the helix and we brought down the horn. Two things this podcast cannot take credit for, but we're going to anyway. But here, we got another one. This is great. I do want to note in watching the replay, you may have sacrificed the horn for more use of the make some noise and are you ready? And I did notice this, Pat. I did notice during the game, and I'm like, that's all they're doing. They're just trading one annoying thing for another. I don't know. Are we responsible for creating an even bigger problem? Did the butterfly effect?
Yes.
Right.
I'm sad to say. I hang my head in solace.
We didn't know. We thought we were doing good work, but they just found something
very
else.
Disappointing. And I love what Brian says, because now I'm becoming a soccer guy, and his
Really?
Yeah, it's stunning. But Brian is so right about the American sporting experience and the infatuation with playing music and make some noise. It sucks. So I'll let him talk about it.
Oh boy. You're opening up. This is next. Hang on for a minute.
I'll be quick.
Get my cup of coffee here.
People have been complaining about this for years. I saw more complaints this weekend. During the game, you want to talk about what you just saw, what's happening. You can't talk to the person next to you because either they're playing Ozzy Osbourne's ha 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 10 feet away from your ear at 100,000 decibels, or they're playing some random pop song that a majority of the 60 and plus fan base has never heard of. And it's impossible. It feels like you're at a concert that happens to be having a football game in front of it as the halftime entertainment. It's ridiculous. Part of it, I think, is because at least the third down part, I can understand they want to muff down the F Penn State chants. You don't want that to be on TV. Fine, whatever. I get it. But at some point, it's okay to have a little bit of silence and just let people look at the person next to them and talk about the football game they just watched. People shouldn't have to go out to the tailgates to be able to communicate about what they're watching. It's absurd. It kills the experience. And I think we are in the majority here and complaining about this.
Yeah.
Who likes this? Like, who is this for? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Yeah, a little music, a little and it's just modern sport. I don't think it's unique to. Although, Pat, tell me, is it that way at MetLife Stadium? We're in the press box behind 7 feet of glass, so I don't know.
This was, besides the game being the worst of my season ticket holding career, I've noticed 2 things as being a fan at this game. One, people will no longer just sit in their seats and watch the game. I got up probably 30 times to let people through the row, which is just so annoying, and I hate it. Like, don't go get a hot dog. Just watch the game, please. And 2, the Giants never did the T-shirt toss ever. And now they're doing the T-shirt toss
and the T-shirts,
and the giveaways and trivia contests. That was never a thing, and until the last maybe year or 2.
Right.
And it's really sad.
The thing I've noticed about the Giants getting way off far field is like the product's so bad now. Like every game they have Daniel Jones, another interception. Hey, there's Carl Banks. Let's honor. The Ring of Honor. Let's put Ahmad Bradshaw up. It's just they can't. That's all they do now. Anyway, again, far field.
To wrap this point up, what Pat brought up with the European soccer model, the world soccer model is the only correct way. You let the action speak for itself. If you want a soundtrack, you let the fans come up with their own chants and their own songs. Yes, Penn State is not the most creative thing, but I think if you left the space for people to make their own noise, instead of screaming, make some noise, you let some people actually make the noise. They'll come up with creative, organic sounds, and they'll actually be into the game on third down screaming and not need some train horn or some 1,000-year-old song blaring to make a difference. That's
true or false, Brian. In the English Premier League, you can't even bring food and drink into the crowd, right?
I don't know that for sure. I know in Spain they have a long-standing tradition of bringing sandwiches to the game, and everyone has their own halftime sandwich. In the Premier League, I think you're right.
Yeah.
But I know for sure, watching on TV, I've never heard piped-in crowd noise at a Premier League game ever.
All right, there it is.
Good. One of you should write this column. I would read this.
We got to go to England then or something.
No,
you were there. You were in France.
Right, exactly. You travel with the Giants. Then they play in like Munich
Frankfurt.
Playing in Munich.
There you go.
Yeah, is it Frankfurt or Munich?
Or Munich. Yeah,
Düsseldorf, one of the cities. All right, another crowd question from people. Where are the fans? Illinois coming off back-to-back 5 and 7 seasons was sold out last night for Kansas. Rutgers coming off a bowl win, gets empty seats. Might as well bring back the COVID era cutouts. Wow, harsh. Rutgers would make more money that way. I will say this. I wait. Like I know I've learned, you cannot criticize the crowd in the first quarter because people are like, oh, just a fake man, damn it. So I waited to the second quarter, midway through the second quarter, and I tweeted out, I'd have to call the crowd lousy. And someone on Twitter responded, well, what do you expect? And to which I replied, I don't know, a better crowd. Just you guys, there's only 7 of these games. I mean, I get it. It's Akron, but it's a night. The forecast called for some drizzle at 7:00. It was a nice day. I was disappointed. I mean, I get it. People do not want to hear us critique their consumption of things, but I was a little surprised.
I thought it was kind of sad, honestly. Like I thought more people would show up, and I think you're right that the rain did impact some people, but if you're going to not come to a game at noon because it's going to rain at 4:00, you were going to want to come to the game anyway. And you're looking for an excuse because if this was USC or Ohio State or anybody or Washington, even, I think more people would have shown up and battled through the elements. It is what it is. It's Akron. It's a bad team. It's a pretty much guaranteed win, but isn't that what you want? Don't you want to go to the stadium, watch your team win a game, enjoy it instead of going to, I don't know, a Washington game where you're going to be biting your nails the whole time? It seems like a fun afternoon to me, but like you said, we're up in the press box watching from above. and maybe maybe we don't know what it's like to be a fan, and it's a lot harder than we think.
We'll say I did the Politi experiment with the student section. I took a picture of the student section at kickoff, very empty. Then I took it again in the second quarter, and I put it side by side, and it was significantly less than what it was a week ago. So whatever Rutgers did to get the first-year students there with the convocation and the barbecue, that clearly made a huge difference. So again, Shiano made the good joke of it being a noon game, and maybe he had to, give him some extra motivation to show up. But the student section that got so much praise and was so excellent against Howard was a little underwhelming as well, to go with the general theme of the crowd.
Good points. All right, back to football stuff. A lot of personnel offense questions. Again, someone pointed out KJ Duff reminded me of a young Kenny Britt, tall, sure-handed receiver. Would you agree? Gus from Flemington. I went back and looked at this. A young Kenny Britt, 9 games, 29 receptions, 440 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's a 15.2 average. Long way to go. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't have the potential. He looks like the body, certainly. But let's remember that pass. That pass to the touchdown pass that he caught, deflected off. Very, very lucky. Greg Chow even was like, okay, it was a lucky play. We got to see him really put his imprint on the offense before I'm willing to go there.
I agree. Two games into his career, probably a little hyperbolic. He's got the body. They're very high on him. Greg Schiano's been high on him since training camp. But was Kenny Britt the one that played as a freshman and had a big impact? I can't remember.
Yes, he was a freshman in 2006. Yep. The number's funny. I thought the numbers would be bigger when I went back and looked. It was 2007 where he became a star. He averaged 19.9 yards a catch, which is just amazing. I didn't realize that, but it's still, those are some good numbers. I knew he had at least one big catch against Louisville in that Louisville game. Looking back on it, but it took a little while for him to get started, but he was still pretty good.
Just to add a note on this, it's going to be tough for KJ Duff to be on the field for even 50% of the snaps because he's behind Ian Strong, who would probably be more of a candidate to, if you wanted to look at a young receiver that could develop into a real star. It's probably Ian Strong, who played a lot as a freshman and has done decently well in his 2 starts so far this season.
Yeah. Another personnel question. Curious about Christian Dremel. No, he's on returns, and we are deep in receiver room, but he was so key last year. Since we didn't pass to a TD on Saturday, I thought lining him up a TD spot to run a pattern. I don't know about that, but I will say it is fascinating. That's a great point. To have the leading receiver a year ago, it speaks volumes to the evolution of his offense. He can't get on the field, and he can't get on the field because he plays the same position as Tyron Miller, right? That's basically the whole. Yeah, and we've seen enough of Miller. No, he seems like he's just a better athlete.
He's a better receiver,
yeah.
It's interesting to see how Rutgers uses Dymere Miller too, because Dremel is clearly like an inside slot guy, pure and simple, right? He's not going to burn people on the outside, but Miller plays inside and out. So it's exactly what you said. It's a tough path for Dremel to get on the field, and Miller is more versatile. So I think that's what it is. And Rutgers feels really good about the 2 guys they have on the outside, a deep threat in Chris Long and a sure-handed possession guy in Ian Strong. So, but Dremel is the 4th guy. That's pretty clear.
Right. I do want to say this could be because of some number confusion, because Dremel changes his jersey from 6 to 80 to be the kickoff guy. And at one point he just kept the 80 on. So I give some room for error with the stat keeping, but I was really surprised to see he has not had 1 catch yet through 2 games. And again, this is the leading receiver from last year. That I thought he had at least 1 catch. I thought it was him that caught a catch while falling down against Akron. That was Dymere Miller. But yeah, that's not. I guess it's good for Rutgers that they've elevated the wide receiver room, but I imagine Dremel will want a little bit more touches, being that he came back for a senior year after being the leading receiver.
On a team with guys, I think there's 9 guys who have catches, right? Certainly, yeah.
There was 8 guys that got catches alone against.
Howard, right? So interesting. All right, Jeff in Essex Fells had a good one. Steve, the look on Shiano's face, the smile actually, when you asked him about the Heisman campaign from Monangai, have we ever seen that look before? Oh, I've seen that look. I would assume he would scowl and cut that talk immediately. And in general, he seems more relaxed for him. I think he was pretty relaxed 49-10. He was in a very good mood after that game. Well, there's times he walks in there and he looks like he's just been even after a win, it just looked like he played for 4 hours. That wasn't the case. He's been you guys have been around him a little bit more than I have. Seems like he's, I think he knows he's got a good team and he's enjoying the hell out of it.
I am not great on Schiano body language reading. The day he talked to us before the first game, I can't remember if it was the Wednesday, when he was telling us that there were a lot of guys banged up. I thought Rutgers was going to play its entire fourth string because every player in the top three strings was just out of commission, the way he was talking about injuries and just the look on his face. And listen, there were 22 guys on the injury report, on the availability report, on the first game. So he wasn't wrong. I'm just saying, if you read too much into the body language and the faces he makes, you're going to come up with some fantasy world that is probably not reality. So I'll stick away from much like I'm apolitical with Kevin Fine's, campaign to be the Rutgers Hall of Fame. I'll be apolitical on Greg Schiano's facial and body language readings.
But here's the bigger point, right? Like subtly, he doesn't want to go out and say, yeah, Kyle Monangai should be a Heisman candidate, which is why he answered the question the way he did. Like you just said it, right, Steve? So
you just said it.
Right, you just said it, right? So it was his way of saying yes, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, sure. And there will be something. And it's early again, I think. But I mean, they're really, the social media team at Rutgers is pretty good with that stuff. You have to, and that's how it is now. It's not like the old days where you'd have to like send out a list of stats to guys so they could vote. I mean, yeah, he's got my vote. You got my vote.
You gotta be careful. He did. You gotta be careful on social media these days, though, because you throw out a Heisman campaign in week 2, and then you have a stinker in week 3, then you're gonna get quote tweeted to oblivion. So you gotta be really strategical when you throw out these tweets these days.
All right. Lots of strategical. I like that. Hey, strategic. Sound like George W. Bush. Oh boy, I just made another. Gotta get angry text. I made a political comment. Strategery. All right. Sam Brown. Any sense on Brown's injury and status? Long season and running backs get worn down. That's Paul Jaffe. Another question didn't sound promising. This is my favorite part of every press conference. Pat gets the microphone at the end and tries to think of a new cringy way to ask Greg Schiano about the injuries. We know he's not going to answer the question, but man, you're tilting out that way. You're pushing that rock up the hill, Syphilis. I love it. It's great. You're going to get it. One day he's going to say, all right, he's out for 3 weeks, but no, he's not going to say that. Do we have any idea about Brown? I mean, a theory?
No.
Okay, good.
There's some chitter chatter that it was kind of in a practice that he may have gotten tweaked, but I don't want to elaborate because I don't really know the answer. So
yeah,
I don't have again, the rock is sort of falling back on us at this point.
Yeah, I would be a little, given his history, I'd be surprised if we see him against Virginia Tech. Unlike Powell and Bailey, I think we will see them against Virginia Tech, but I'm guessing.
That's my sense. If I was a betting man, that would be my bet as well.
Right. I'm also not worried about that injury, and I get that. I understand why fans are. He's pretty significant players in the depth chart. Backup running back. I think the backup running back could be a lonely job on this team, the way Kyle Monangai's playing. And I think the freshman's pretty good. Deep position. I don't know. I mean, if Monangai gets hurt, it doesn't matter if Sam Brown's healthy or not. This team's screwed. I really believe he's just a next level player. But until he does, as long as he's healthy, he's good with the workload. I mean, he loves the workload. So, do you disagree? Are you with me on that?
No.
Okay.
No.
A lot of agreement here on the rant this week. Eric Orlando had a good point on the Twitter, though. He's asking, with the trend in football, less contact in practice, less workload in the offseason, are these injuries early attributable to tough practices, players not physically prepared, or just dumb luck? Is it me, or does Greg run a tough practice regime? Unapologetically so. Greg runs a tough practice regime. Do you think that contributes to what we're seeing here? It's a great point. Good question.
Maybe. Certainly possible. Hard to know. I'd have to go back and see if they have more injuries now to keep players than they have in previous seasons. It feels like a lot, but I don't know. And this is football after all. A lot of dumb luck happens in the sport with injuries. But I certainly think it doesn't help to go really, really hard in the preseason. And I guess you can't be surprised that this happened.
Right.
I will add this. Greg runs a tough regiment, but he also rested a lot of guys in scrimmages and eased the veterans that have had 1,000 or so snaps. They didn't play a lot. So
Right.
I think he has learned to tone it down. So maybe this is a good point that it is possible.
Right.
So I think Greg has definitely toned it down a little bit.
Kyle Monangai does not have a carry in the fourth quarter. He could have 600 yards. And if it were Ray Rice, and you talk about the evolution, I have to look this up before I make this point. Someone's going to point out that Ray Rice didn't either. But this were the old days. I think he would think nothing of it. Like he would have those guys out there. I think he has changed a little bit. And to the point, the counterpoint of this, you could go the other way very easily. Like I think the NFL, I watched that game yesterday, some of the action in week one, that Giants game. I think these guys aren't prepared for the first week of the season anymore. Like that's a big issue. So like, where's the fine line? You don't want to get them hurt. You don't want to wear them out at training camp. But at the same token, you have to get them ready for the season. Interesting.
I think that's the line that Greg's trying to create is, okay, if you've played over 1,000 snaps, right, you should be experienced enough to know what to expect week one against Howard, and those guys can rest. I think that's kind of the NFL model as well. I would assume.
Right. All right. Sue in Somerset. And we've got this from a bunch of people. I get this as it's happening. The sponsor of this podcast was texting me, what channel is the game on? I'm like, I don't know, Chris, I'm sorry. But I guess there's a lot of frustration. I know you guys are busy post Akron, but here's a podcast question, an old topic. I live 5 miles from Rutgers, but the Penn State game appeared on BTN today instead of Rutgers, and on the BTN Overflow channels too on Xfinity. Through X, BTN acknowledged it was a problem, and they'd contact Comcast. I just don't understand how this happens. It's just crazy. Like a lot of complaints about this. I mean, I've got now you've got 800 channels on cable. And if you're like me, you subscribe to like 7 streaming services because you signed up for like Peacock to watch some dumb show and you never got rid of it, and you still can't get the game. I mean, that's frustrating, man. I feel bad for people who went through that.
Sure, but what do they want us to do? They text us like we're Comcast technicians. What do you want me to do?
I just offer moral support now. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry you're having this problem. That's the best.
I have a mini solution.
You do?
I have a mini solution, and this is maybe not great for people who just want to watch the game on TV. And I get that this was a total mess up by higher ups at these cable networks for sure. There's no other way to put it. But if you get the Fox Sports app, it streams every Big Ten game. So whether it's on your iPad or your phone or even on your laptop, Fox Sports will broadcast every Big Ten game, and that's a good way to watch it if you can't find the channel.
Right.
I was going to suggest a way to cut costs and headaches. Just illegally stream the game. Just find a pirate stream and illegally stream the game. You pay $0. There's never any issue with finding the channel, and the quality's pretty good. But I won't tell you where to find them because I don't want to be indicted.
One other thing, to watch the games on the Fox Sports app, you do have to have some sort of cable package, right? Like you have to have Comcast or Xfinity or something like that. Another
potential. It's just a shame that the games aren't physically played in some place where large gatherings are approved.
Yeah.
Like a stadium where you could get a seat, and then I'm kidding. I can understand. People can't go. If you can't go to the game.
You're right. Sue in Somerset was 5 minutes away from the stadium. Just get in your car and go to the game.
Oh, you're not going to rip Sue in Somerset. How dare you? She had things going on. It's a busy week.
Tickets cost $5.
I'm gonna tell Sue you said this.
She's gonna watch the podcast. Sue, I'm sorry, pal, but you got to go to the stadium. You live 5 minutes away. What? You can't go to Penn State, but you can go to Rutgers. I mean, what are we doing? Just go to the game. There's 20,000 open seats. Thank you, Steve. I didn't make the connection that she lived 5 minutes away. Just go to the game. Oh my God. Sorry. I can't even. Oh my God. Let's move on.
I'm sorry, Sue. Don't listen to him. He's just mean.
Sue, I'll buy you a ticket to the game. I'll take it out of my paycheck. I will buy you a ticket to the game.
All right, one last
Are
observation.
there bars too? Can't people go to bars and watch the game? Sip on waters. I mean, I don't know.
A lot of options. I think if you're in your living room, there's an expectation when you have the remote control, you would be able to turn on one of the 7 overflow channels and not see Penn State 7 times. I think that's the point here. That's
Fair
bad.
enough.
That's
Take
bad.
it up with Xfinity. Don't take it up with me.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do? We can do a lot of things. Okay, we can't fix the horrible cable companies that have been disastrous for decades. Okay, that's not our fault. And I understand people want to get their frustrations out. The NJ.com tech service is not the place to
We're
do it.
here.
Or our
No, I'm
Twitter.
here for you. You just text me. Don't worry about him. I will listen and I'm commiserate. I will offer I am so sorry you're having trouble with the game here. That'll be my new role as you're rapidly taking over my spot as the bad guy on the show and in the media. I love it. This is great. I've groomed you well for this role.
She can walk to the stadium. She doesn't even need a parking pass. I'm sorry. She looks fine.
Now you want Sue to walk 5 miles? Is that what you're saying? You want Sue to walk 5? You're gonna walk down Route 18 to this game? You're gonna get Sue killed. From Somerset? She's in Somerset, not even the same county. Now you've lost your mind. I just woke up the dog. I was so angry about that. That come on. That just seems a little excessive.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on.
Don't walk to the game, Sue. Don't listen to him. Gavin Wimsatt, speaking of people who are no longer in Somerset County, or a reader wants to know if we've been watching what's happening in Kentucky and our thoughts on Gavin Wimsatt's performance. I saw that he played. I saw the numbers. I saw one highlight of one pass, and I said, wow, nothing has changed. It was a pass that was, I assumed the target receiver was one of these over his head interception. He was 3 for 7 for 14 yards, 1 interception. Had a nice day running the ball, but we know that that's always been there for him. I think we're seeing exactly the same problems that he had here.
Yeah, he came in at the end of the game when it was 31-6, and the starting quarterback was 3 of 10 with a pick as well for 30 yards. So it's not like, the starting guy was that much better. But he came in with the fourth quarter, the game was over, and he still threw a pick that is pretty much inexplicable. He just kind of looked like the Gavin of last year in a blue uniform. But he's back home, closer to home, which is kind of the way it is. I think I'd be concerned for Kentucky. This is the last 10 home SEC games. This is their 8th loss. So it feels like he went to a different program going in an opposite direction as Rutgers. But I thought the pick was kind of, give some people some deja vu, I guess.
As I was listening to it, I just had a vision of Sue in Somerset on the edge of Route 1 texting us. I'm stuck here. I can't cross Route 1. How am I going to get – I'm trying to walk here from Somerset. How am I going to get here? I'm stuck. You told me to walk. Can someone come pick me up? I'm going to be like, I'm going to go.
Yeah, this guy's all off. He's all off. Route 1's on the other side. Come on. But anyway, another transfer.
I'm sorry. Rocking on 287. Is that as my joke funnier if I said that? Marching down 78. What route do you want me to be on?
Walking up Easton Ave.
All right.
I'll pick her up. I'll pick her up. Okay.
Right,
I will pick her up and bring her to the stadium.
Trying to make a joke.
Okay. We brought up Gavin Wimsatt as a transfer. So I do want to bring up one other guy, Kayron Lynch Adams. We used to be a Rutgers running back. He went to the University of Massachusetts, and now he's at Michigan State. Had another really good game at Michigan State in that win over Maryland. So he's going to be he's not the featured back. They have a couple ball carriers, but he's played 2 great games now for Michigan State, and someone to keep on the radar.
Wow. Good point. All right. It's all the questions I got from Rutgers Insider. Anything else? I think we've got some exciting women's soccer news.
Yes. So Gia German, UFC champion, has completely revitalized the women's soccer program. In the 3 games that she's been suspended, they have won all 3 games. They have scored 8 goals and suffered 0 goals. They are an absolute wagon back to the glory days of 2014-15, all because of the spark lit by Gia German, the best fighter, I would say, pound for pound in college women's soccer.
I think I'd let us talk to Gia about this. Have you put in a request? Interview request? Yeah,
I have. I don't expect to for her to become available. No, you could try.
I'd love to. They will not. That seems unlikely.
I don't blame them for that.
Me
In other
neither.
Olympics,
Me neither.
in other Olympic sports news, Rutgers field hockey lost to UConn at home yesterday. I think UConn is a good program though, so not a terrible loss. And the only other update I have is Hoops hosted a 3-star center named Javante Ware. He was at the game along with a lot of the players of the current team, including Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, who were taking photos with fans outside the stadium and who were
Cool.
in the student section, the front row with the Riot Squad during the first quarter of the Akron game. So love to see them being regular college kids. They'll be in school for 6 months or whatever, and it seems like they're really soaking up every chance they have to just be normal guys.
The best 6 months of your life, college, when you're an NBA prospect, right? That's good. I don't even do 6 months. You even get that many. That's great. Good for them. That's fun. That's fun. Are they there working out now? Is Dylan healthy?
So they are doing workouts. They don't start the official NCAA period for 2 weeks. But based on a clip they posted on social media, he is running around and throwing passes to Emmanuel Ogble, who's catching them and throwing them down. So it looks like if he's not fully cleared at this point, he should be relatively soon. It looked like he was moving pretty well. So all signs point to Rutgers being fully healthy by the time November rolls around.
Nice. All right. Anything else, Pat? Final thoughts?
I got nothing. There was a great interview with Coach Goodell and Nick Costco out there on YouTube. If you want to get into the wrestling mode a little bit, there's some real good highlights on there. One of them is that they're going to wrestle North Carolina State at Toms River North High School at the what used to be called Pine Belt Arena, Rataco Center. It's gone through a bunch of name changes, but it's a cool arena. That's going to be a big match, so that'll be interesting. And also, similarly to basketball, they have the number 4 ranked recruiting class in the country. Nice. A couple of those guys might be in the lineup early this year. So there's a lot of excitement around wrestling too. So keep that in the back of your mind.
I'm going to end with a cultural reference that I know neither one of you will get, but our old read at the end of The Incredible Hulk, the old show, Dr. David Banner would have to leave town and hitchhike on the road, and they would play that sad song. That I am now picturing Sue in Somerset hitchhiking her way to the game. On that note, it's a good way to leave it. We'll be back in a week to preview the Virginia Tech game. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at nj.com/insider.